and it was illegally, without due process, and without me being sworn in, without me having an opportunity to show evidence, witnesses, or anything like that. It was illegally transferred from me to him on May 25th, 2023. The reason why was because in the middle of a court hearing where we were supposed to be there on a hearing for all pending motions per the judge and the court order, when we got there, she said, I'm not going to be able to be sworn in, that only my ex can be sworn in, that only he was going to be able to testify, that I was not going to be allowed to testify, I wasn't going to be allowed to show any of my exhibits or evidence that I had brought in person and that I had e-filed in advance of the hearing. And she basically told me that I wasn't allowed to object to anything, and that if I tried to object or say anything to try to defend myself, I was going to get thrown into the hallway. And then she did throw me into the hallway. And then while I was in the hallway, she ordered my ex to go pick up my daughter and take her, and said the order was going to be temporary, that he was going to have temporary sole legal and sole physical custody, and that I was only going to have supervised visits as determined by the father in the presence of a third party designated by the father, giving him full control of everything. Because during the hearing, I brought up the fact that Angelina had been at the hospital 2 days prior with me because her pediatrician, Preferred Pediatrics in Milford, Connecticut, stated that they strongly recommended that I take her to the emergency room to have a rape kit conducted and to get tested and checked out because she was having symptoms. And so when we got there, we did all of that. The doctor said a new investigation was going to happen. And then 2 days later, we go to court. I tried to ask for a continuance. I tried to get a lawyer. I tried to do all these things in between the 2 days where I was in a hospital for 12 hours with my kid, and the judge refused to let me have a continuance. So then when I showed up in the middle of that hearing, she took Angelina, saying that it was going to be temporary, saying that because I reported the sexual abuse and because I took Angelina to the hospital and because I had a rape kit done for her and because I listened to what the pediatrician told me and because I literally was trying to take care of my child like any mother would do. If your child came to you and said that they were being sexually abused, what kind of mother isn't going to report it to the police? What kind of mother isn't going to report it to their lawyer? What kind of mother isn't going to report it to DCF or talk about it to their therapist or to their friends or to their family and try to get help for their child? I did everything I could possibly do to try to help Angelina, thinking I was doing the right thing as a law student, as somebody who was trying to respect the law, as somebody who has and still has now a clean record, regardless of whatever my ex and the people he pays to talk shit about me tries to convince everybody in the world and the internet. And my record's clean, but guess whose isn't? Gerald Viglione Jr., he's a convicted felon. He was convicted of violation of protective order, strangulation, and assault. And he is currently on probation for recent charges of DUI, larceny, and failure to have seatbelts in his vehicle, which he transports my daughter in. Guess who else has a record? Matthew John Lodise from Waterbury, Connecticut, Angelina's father. He also has convictions of 2 counts of reckless endangerment, which he used an Alford plea to plea down from the original charges, which were felony risk of injury to a minor for leaving his 2 sons, Sal and Dom, alone to go out with his girlfriend, Soo Yen Lee, back in 2017. And because of that, he has multiple substantiations of neglect against his children from DCF, and he has a record. He's also done more than 30 days in jail, and he's been arrested multiple times. He was also arrested for harassment, for harassing me in 2023, and then he was arrested again in 2023 for felony risk of injury to a minor, resisting arrest, and interfering with an officer, for refusing to let Angelina get medical attention when she again screamed in pain, saying that her butt hurts and that her stomach hurts, but grabbing her vagina as she's saying her butt hurts because Matt and his 19-year-old son Dominic trained Angelina to be confused and try to groom her and have her confused and lie and say things that aren't accurate, so adults get misled by saying that one private part is called their butt, one private part is called their back, when really they're missing what the private parts are actually called and misnaming it so that she's not saying the proper thing. So when people ask what happened, she says, oh, it happened on my back, when in reality it should have been her butt, or things like that. And the things that they've been doing has been going on for more than 3 years now. And the fact is that we had a court order. I had sole legal and sole physical custody of Juliana. I had joint legal and primary residency of Angelina. Her dad was supposed to have her on the weekends from Friday night until Monday morning, and he was responsible to bring her to church and back for Sunday school on Sundays. He had the judge eliminate the orders where she said he no longer had to bring her to church, which is illegal and violates the First Amendment. He had the judge transfer Angelina from me to him, which violates all of our rights under federal law as a crime victim, especially because it was during an active, brand new investigation. And if you go on YouTube and you look up Pro Legal Solutions and look up my page, you can clearly see that the hearing was there from May 25th, 2023. If you literally go on and type in May 25/25/23 hearing, it'll pop up. And this is something that was a 2-hour hearing that was not said that it was going to be a final determination of a modification of anything. It was supposed to be a hearing on all pending motions. And after that, she said it was going to be temporary. She stated that it was going to be temporary for 1 week, but then she gave us a court date for 3 weeks later, not 1 week later. So then the next court date was June 15th, 2023, where we were supposed to come back to court and readdress this temporary order that was issued without due process or opportunity to be heard. And so on May 30th, 2023, 5 days later, she goes in and she denies every single other pending motion that had been pending without a hearing, without opportunity to be heard. Then on May 31st, the next day, she goes in and she issues a 10-page memorandum of decision filled with lies, slander, and things that are misleading and misaccurate intentionally, that basically says that because I reported sexual abuse of my daughter, that I now am going to permanently be on supervised visits only, that I can only see or talk to my daughter if, when, and under circumstances that the father controls, and that I can't have any access to her unless he agrees to it, and states that I can never ever file anything again in the court unless I get permission first. So I tried to file appeals. I tried to ask for permission to file things. The permissions were denied. If I tried to ask to file things without permission, it was rejected and sent back in the mail. If I tried to file appeals, the appellate court did the same bullshit that the lower courts did. This is all happening in the state of Connecticut, and I have going on 30 different names of other people from Connecticut who are in the same boat or worse than me. And so this is not an isolated incident. This is a pattern. This is human trafficking. This is child trafficking. This video is probably going to get suppressed like every single other video that I make that tries to talk about stuff like this, but it doesn't matter because people are starting to wake up and realize that this is not an isolated incident, and this is happening to way too many mothers and way too many children. So the reason why, again, that he got custody is because this judge, Jane Cupson Grossman, that used to work at the New Haven Superior Court, but now works at the Waterbury Superior Court in Waterbury, Connecticut, and before it was in New Haven, Connecticut, she ordered that I was not going to ever get to have my daughter again because of the fact that she accused me of lying about the sexual abuse allegations, which were actually true. And I sent more than 70 videos to DCF and the police in the New Britain Police Department showing my daughter making disclosures stating that her brother sexually abused her. And she made the same disclosures in a forensic interview in Yale on March 3rd, 2023. And not even a few months later, she was forcibly trafficked by force, fraud, and deceit, and intrinsic and extrinsic fraud upon the court from my safe home in Orange to his unsafe home in New Britain, which he then ditched that apartment and moved back into his mother's basement in Waterbury, which he's been living in since June of 2023, so that his mom and son can be his permanent free babysitters while he continues to deny Angelina access to services, doesn't let her go to therapy, hasn't had her have a physical, and completely ignores all of her needs all the time. So yeah, that's what happens in Connecticut when you report sexual abuse.